Giza, Egypt. For over 4,000 years, this has been the most studied building on Earth, and we still don't know everything hidden inside it. It was built to last forever. So of course, people have spent centuries trying to break it open anyway. A ruler once tore through solid rock, hunting for treasure. Explorers used dynamite to blast their way in. Robots crawled through its narrow tunnels with tiny cameras, hoping to find answers. Every single one hit a dead end. Then, in 2017, something changed. Scientists using brand new technology found a hidden space no one knew existed. Not gold, not a curse. A giant empty room, sitting silent above the pyramid's most famous chamber, sealed off maybe since the day it was built. So how did people without iron tools or even the wheel build something this exact? And what is still waiting up there in the dark? Let's begin at the beginning. Long before there was a pyramid, there was a choice. The Giza Plateau sits on a shelf of solid rock, high enough to stay dry above the Nile, close enough to the river for boats loaded with stone to reach it. Whoever picked this spot wasn't thinking about next year. They were thinking about forever. Egypt already knew how to build big. A few miles south, at Saqqara, stands the Step Pyramid, the world's first large stone building of its size, designed a generation earlier by a brilliant architect named Imhotep. Everything Khufu's builders would attempt, they learned from that earlier tomb. History remembers the son's monument. It forgets how much he owed his fathers. Centuries later, a Greek writer named Herodotus told a darker story. He claimed Khufu was a cruel king who worked his people to death, and even sold his own daughter to pay for the build. It's a dramatic tale. It's also almost certainly a myth, written by someone who wasn't there and didn't like Egypt much. But it says something true. Even in ancient times, people sensed that something dark had to be buried inside a project this massive. Whatever kind of man Khufu really was, one thing is certain. To build what came next, Egypt would need something it had never had before. Not just workers. A whole system to feed them, house them, and keep them building for years without falling apart. That system is where our story goes next. For a long time, most people pictured slaves under the whip, dragging stone in the desert heat until they dropped. The digging tells a different story. In the 1990s, archaeologists found a whole town just south of the pyramids, built to house the workers. There were bakeries. There were breweries. There were doctors on hand to treat broken bones and injuries. And when these workers died, they were buried with real care, in graves close to the pyramids themselves. That is not how you treat slaves. These were paid laborers, likely farmers called in during flood season, when the Nile covered their fields anyway and there was no planting to be done. Then, in 2013, divers made an even stranger find. Inside a cave on the Red Sea coast, they discovered ancient papyrus scrolls, the oldest written pages ever found. They belonged to a site manager named Mir. In his own handwriting, he described his job: loading limestone onto boats, sailing it up the Nile, delivering it to Giza. A real man describing a real workday 4,500 years ago. Put together, these clues changed the whole story. This wasn't 20 years of suffering. It was something closer to a national project, carefully organized, carefully fed, and carefully run. Perhaps the first megaproject in human history. But nothing built with this much care stays a secret for long. Sooner or later, someone always comes looking for what's inside. That care did not last. Egypt's old kingdom fell apart just a few centuries after Khufu died. And once the government lost its grip, tomb robbers moved fast. A pyramid full of gold and royal treasure was too tempting a target for anyone to leave alone. The most famous break-in came much later, in the year 820. A ruler named Caliph al-Ma'mun was sure the pyramid held hidden gold. He sent workers to force their way inside. They had no dynamite yet, so they used fire and vinegar to crack the rock, then hammered through solid stone by hand. After all that effort, they finally broke into the passages deep inside. They found nothing. No gold, no treasure, no bodies, just empty stone hallways, already picked clean long before he ever arrived. Then, in the medieval period, thieves took something else. The pyramid once had a smooth, gleaming white outer layer of polished stone, bright enough to be seen shining from miles away. Over time, that layer was stripped off, block by block, and hauled into nearby Cairo to build mosques and palaces. What stands today is the rough, unfinished stone underneath, the part no one was ever meant to see. Al-Ma'mun left with empty hands. But the tunnel he cut through solid rock is still there today, a scar left by one man's search for treasure. And the question he never answered is the same one that still drives researchers to this pyramid now. Step further inside, and nothing about this place feels simple. The Grand Gallery stretches almost 9 meters high, its walls stepping inward toward the ceiling like a tomb built for giants, not ordinary men. Above the king's chamber sit 5 stacked rooms, one on top of the other, built for one single purpose: to hold up the crushing weight of the millions of tons of stone above. Inside one of these hidden rooms, workers left a message behind. Painted in red, in their own handwriting, is the name Khufu. It is the closest thing to a signature the builders ever left. But the strangest parts of the pyramid are not the rooms. They are the shafts. 2 narrow tunnels run from the king's chamber out toward the open air. 2 more run from the queen's chamber. Except those last 2 do not lead anywhere at all. They just stop, deep inside the stone, going nowhere. In 1993, engineers sent a small robot up one of these dead-end shafts. Its camera found something waiting in the dark. A small stone door, fitted with copper handles, sealed shut from the inside. In 2002, a second robot drilled straight through it. Behind that door was another door. Sealed, silent, untouched. No one has ever gotten past it. For over 100 years, this is exactly where the trail went cold. A door behind a door, built by hands that vanished thousands of years ago, guarding something no living person has ever seen. The doors would stay silent for another 100 years. But one man was about to prove just how carefully this whole pyramid had been planned in the first place. In the late 1800s, a young British surveyor named Flinders Petrie moved into an empty tomb near the pyramids and stayed there for months. Night after night, he measured every stone he could reach, by hand, with a level of care that bordered on obsession. His numbers are still used by experts today. What he found was almost hard to believe. The base of the pyramid is level to within about 2 centimeters, across a length of over 230 meters. Its 4 sides line up with true north so closely that builders would not match that precision again for another 1,000 years. It has stood in place, unchanged, for around 4,500 years. Until the 1300s, it was the tallest thing human hands had ever built. This kind of precision changed how people saw the whole structure. A team capable of measuring stone to within a couple of centimeters, across an entire base that size, does not build a random or unfinished tomb. Every choice inside it must have been deliberate too. So why leave shafts that lead nowhere? Why build a door, sealed behind another door, protecting nothing anyone has ever found? For decades, no one had an answer, and that silence, that gap between what we could measure and what we could not explain, is exactly what would open the door to some very strange new theories. Strange theories were exactly what came next. By the middle of the 20th century, the gap between "we don't fully understand this," and "so it must be something impossible" had grown into a real problem. Books claiming the pyramid was built by aliens, or lost people from a sunken city, or ancient engineers with secret advanced technology, sold in the millions. Television specials ran with these ideas as if they were fact, drowning out the real archaeologists actually digging at the site. Some amateur explorers even caused real damage, tearing into walls and floors, chasing hidden rooms that existed only in their own minds. By the 1990s, serious Egyptology had a problem it never asked for. To many people, real research suddenly looked boring next to a story about aliens. Others assumed scientists were hiding the truth on purpose. Wild theories filled the silence, and the silence was the real problem. Many honest researchers stopped speaking up in public at all, tired of being mocked or misquoted, and that quiet let the guessing games take over the conversation completely. But away from the cameras and the wild headlines, the real work never actually stopped. Quiet teams kept measuring, kept scanning, kept asking careful questions nobody was filming. And soon, that patience was about to pay off in a way that would change everything we thought we knew about this pyramid, using tools no one back in Petrie's time could have ever imagined. That patience paid off in 2015. A team of scientists and engineers from around the world launched a project called Scan Pyramids. Their tool was not a drill or a robot. It was something invisible. Cosmic rays. Tiny particles called muons rain down from space every second, passing straight through solid stone. But they slow down and get soaked up differently depending on what they pass through. Solid rock absorbs them one way. Empty space absorbs them another way. By reading these tiny differences, scientists could see inside the pyramid without ever touching it. In 2017, the team published their results in the science journal Nature. Using 3 separate detection methods, all pointing to the exact same result, they confirmed something nobody expected. A hidden space, sitting directly above the Grand Gallery, at least 30 meters long. That is roughly the size of a passenger jet. And it does not connect to any known passage, room, or shaft anywhere else in the pyramid. Nobody knows what it is. It could be a simple gap left over from construction. It could be a sealed chamber built on purpose. It could be something else entirely, something we have no name for yet. No drill has touched it. No robot has entered it. No camera has ever looked inside. For the first time in over 1,000 years, there is a confirmed space inside the Great Pyramid that no living person has ever seen. And right now, it is still exactly that. Unexplored. To this day, no one has entered that hidden space. Egyptian officials have been careful about pushing further. They worry about damaging a structure that has already stood for thousands of years, and about setting off another wave of wild claims and headlines. So for now, the scanning continues quietly. So does the argument over what should happen next. There is something almost hard to believe about that. We live in a world with satellites circling the planet and telescopes that can see to the edge of space. And yet one of the most studied buildings on Earth is still holding on to a secret, 4,500 years after it was sealed shut. Khufu's builders set out to make something time could never touch. In that one goal, they succeeded completely. So completely that even now, with every tool modern science can offer, there is still a room up there in total darkness that no living person has ever seen. If you enjoyed this journey beneath the Great Pyramid, hit like and subscribe. It genuinely helps us keep telling stories like this one. And there are many more secrets still buried in history, just waiting for someone to go looking. And as usual, subscribe now, and we will see you in the next video.